The distant outpost hung at the edge of a star system like a lonely sentinel, surrounded by the cold void of space. Its metallic walls gleamed under the light of a distant sun, and antennae stretched like long fingers into the darkness. Inside, life moved with quiet efficiency. Human soldiers patrolled the corridors. Maintenance crews monitored energy cores, and diplomats prepared for talks with alien species. Among the visitors was the Queen of the Thalkor, a proud alien race known across the stars for their strength, discipline, and unyielding pride. She had come to negotiate alliances, not expecting war to touch her so suddenly. The Queen's presence filled the outpost with an unspoken tension. Her tall, sleek form moved with grace and authority, each step measured, each gesture commanding respect. Her armor, a shimmering blue and silver, reflected the soft lights of the halls. Around her, her guards, massive, imposing creatures with armored exoskeletons, walked in formation, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. Yet despite their strength, a quiet unease had settled over them. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and not easily read, and the Queen's instincts told her that relying entirely on them was unwise. Lieutenant Marcus Kane had noticed her arrival immediately. He was a human soldier assigned to security, tall and lean with a mind trained for quick thinking under pressure. Where the alien guards saw intimidation, Marcus saw opportunity. Opportunity to prove that humans were more than just fragile creatures in the galaxy's vast and dangerous web. He watched her from a distance, noting her cautious movements, the way her eyes swept the corridors, and the subtle tension in her posture. Marcus had been trained to expect danger, but he also understood something else. Courage often meant stepping forward when others hesitated, and danger was exactly what arrived. Without warning, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Red lights flashed, and automated defenses activated with a deafening roar. The enemy fleet had arrived, fast, precise, and relentless. Ships with jagged wings and black hulls tore through the void, their weapons cutting swaths of destruction into the outpost's outer walls. Explosions shook the metal floors, sending sparks into the air and warning of imminent collapse. The Thalkor guards immediately readied their weapons, their instinctive training kicking in. They moved with deadly precision, forming a protective barrier around the Queen. Yet the enemy was clever, attacking with unpredictable maneuvers and targeting weak points in the defenses. Panic crept into the ranks of the alien guards, a feeling they had been taught to suppress but could not entirely hide. Marcus didn't hesitate. He sprinted through the corridor, calling out orders to humans as he went, guiding them to secure positions. Then he saw it. The Queen stranded near the central control hub, her guards faltering. Some of them had already begun to retreat, leaving her exposed. Marcus felt a surge of determination. He dove forward, grabbing the Queen and pulling her to cover behind a reinforced wall. "Your guards," he said quickly. "They've left. You need to move." The Queen's eyes widened in disbelief. She had never imagined a human would step forward in such a moment, not just to survive, but to protect her. "Step aside, human," she hissed, her voice sharp with authority. "I am the Queen. My guards are trained to protect me." Marcus shook his head. "They're running." "I'm not." The words were simple, but the conviction behind them struck something in the Queen's heart. She had always been taught that her status commanded loyalty, that fear and respect were enough to keep her safe. And yet here was a human, no larger than many of her guards, standing firm, ready to face the storm. She had no choice. She followed Marcus as he led her through the labyrinth of corridors, dodging falling debris and the occasional burst of enemy fire. Sparks rained down from damaged panels, and the scent of ozone filled the air. Each step tested their endurance, but Marcus's steady pace and calm commands kept the Queen moving. "Keep low," he said, ducking behind a doorway as a volley of plasma shot past. "If we go straight to the hangar, we can take an escape pod. Then we're out of here." The Queen hesitated. "Escape pods? This is beneath me. I am the ruler of my people. I will not flee like a coward." "You're not fleeing," Marcus replied without looking back. "You're surviving. There's a difference. Survive and you can fight another day." His words were blunt, practical, human in their simplicity. And in that simplicity, the Queen found a strange clarity. Her pride burned, yes, but survival had value even she could not deny. She nodded curtly, falling into step beside him. They reached the central hub just as a massive explosion tore through a nearby wall. The force threw them both to the ground. Dust and debris filled the air, and the sound of alarm screamed in their ears. The Queen struggled to rise, but Marcus was already on his feet, brushing off the dust and offering a hand. "Come on, we move now." The Queen accepted it, and together they dashed toward the hangar. Enemy drones had begun to sweep the corridors, their sensors seeking heat signatures. Marcus's mind raced. He ducked into a side maintenance corridor, using the machinery to block the drone's line of sight. Sparks flew as the drones fired blindly into the walls, and Marcus led the Queen through twisting passageways that even some of the outpost personnel didn't know existed. The journey was exhausting, but Marcus's endurance impressed the Queen. Every obstacle seemed impossible, yet he found a way around it. Doors jammed? He pried them open. Security locks? He hacked them with a handheld device faster than any alien could. She realized that humans possessed a certain cunning, a flexibility that her own species often lacked. Finally, they reached the hangar. The Queen's escape pod sat ready, its metal hull gleaming despite the chaos around it. Marcus glanced at the pod, then back at the Queen. "Go, get inside." "I'll cover you." The Queen hesitated. She wanted to argue, to assert her authority, but she saw the determination in Marcus's eyes. The humans he led may not have been as physically imposing as her guards, but his courage was undeniable. She stepped into the pod, taking one last look at him. Marcus raised his weapon, firing at incoming drones with calm precision. The Queen watched, amazed, as he maneuvered between blasts, using the hangar's machinery as cover, always protecting her pod's path to launch. Finally, with a nod, she initiated the pod's launch sequence. It lifted off the hangar floor, shields activating just in time to deflect incoming fire. Marcus ran to the pod's side door, ignoring the danger. "Go," he shouted. "I'll find another way." The pod shot upward, escaping the outpost just as a massive explosion consumed the hangar behind them. Inside, the Queen gripped the controls, staring at the human soldier who had saved her life. For the first time, she felt something other than fear or annoyance toward humans. She felt respect, and a spark of something deeper. As the outpost crumbled behind them, Marcus ducked into the shadows, disappearing into maintenance tunnels. The Queen watched the monitors, tracking his movements as he led a small group of surviving humans to safety. She realized then that humans, small and seemingly fragile, could possess bravery and cunning that even her strongest warriors lacked. That night, as the pod drifted through space, the Queen remained silent, her thoughts heavy with reflection. She had been abandoned by her own guards, left alone in a moment of peril, and yet one human soldier had held her safe. A seed of understanding had been planted, one that would grow into something far greater than any political alliance. Marcus, back among the survivors, patched wounds and reassured frightened soldiers. His eyes always seemed to find the Queen even from a distance. In a galaxy that often judged humans as weak, he was proof that one determined human could change the course of events, could stand where others fled, and could protect even the mightiest Queen from certain death. The enemy fleet still loomed in the distance, relentless and unyielding. The galaxy was dangerous and survival was never guaranteed. Yet in that moment, Marcus Kane had proven that courage, ingenuity, and loyalty could shine brighter than the strongest armor or the largest army. And the alien Queen, once skeptical and proud, had witnessed it firsthand. The outpost had fallen, but the story was only beginning. One human soldier had made a difference, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The escape pod hurtled through space, leaving the shattered outpost behind. Red alarms still blared inside the small cabin, warning of hull damage and system instability. The alien Queen sat rigidly in her seat, her sharp eyes fixed on the approaching stars, her mind racing. She had survived the outpost's destruction, but the danger was far from over. She could feel it. A predator still hunting them, waiting for any mistake. Beside her, the controls beeped and blinked, registering the pod's precarious condition. Marcus Kane, still alert and calm, adjusted the navigation manually. The automated systems were damaged in the escape, leaving him to rely on his quick thinking. "We can't stay here," he said, voice steady. "The enemy fleet will track us if we keep a straight course. We need to head to a nearby asteroid field. It's dense, but it'll hide us for now." The Queen raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You trust your instincts over technology?" Marcus shrugged. "Technology can fail. People rarely do." His tone was casual, but it carried weight. The Queen studied him quietly, realizing that this human had a confidence she rarely saw in anyone, Thalcor or human. It was not arrogance. It was certainty in action, and it was contagious. The pod shuddered as enemy scanners picked up their escape. The red lights flashed faster, warning of incoming pursuit drones. Marcus leaned over the control panel, overriding damaged systems, his fingers moving with practiced speed. The pod responded immediately, dodging the first wave of detection. "Hang on," he said. "We're going to need some sharp maneuvers." The Queen gripped the armrests of her seat. She had flown in ships before, led fleets even, but there was something raw and unpredictable about this human pilot. He moved with a mix of calculation and instinct that no formal training could teach. "Your species adapts quickly," she said, almost as a statement to herself. Marcus didn't reply. His focus was on the screens, the sensors, and the flickering lights of danger surrounding them. Then a warning beep cut through the hum of the pod. Enemy drones had locked on. They were fast, small, and relentless, designed to chase and disable escape pods. "They're on us," Marcus said calmly. "Brace yourself." The Queen leaned forward instinctively, a mix of fear and curiosity pushing her. Marcus twisted the pod sharply, weaving through the void as plasma fire streaked past them. The ship shook violently, and a section of the hull glowed from a near hit. But Marcus didn't panic. Every movement was precise, every maneuver designed to outsmart the enemy. "You rely on tricks and instincts," the Queen said, her voice cutting through the alarms. "The Thalcor would have attacked head-on. You hide, you evade, you survive." Marcus glanced at her briefly. Survival comes first. Fighting comes second. He twisted the controls again, sending the pod spinning through the debris of the destroyed outpost, ducking behind massive chunks of metal and rock. The drones followed, but their rigid programming made them easy targets for a human mind that could think creatively in the chaos. After what felt like hours, though it had only been minutes, the pod emerged from the debris field into a safer, darker region of space. Marcus exhaled deeply, scanning for further threats. "That should give us some breathing room," he said. The Queen allowed herself to relax, for the first time noticing the humans' calm under pressure. "Impressive," she admitted quietly. "Most of my guards would have been destroyed or dead by now." Marcus smirked faintly. "They were. You should see them running." The Queen's lips twitched, almost a smile. "It seems your species surprises even me." They drifted in silence for a while, the stars outside a distant glittering canvas. The Queen studied Marcus carefully, realizing that his courage was more than physical. His mind worked under pressure, weaving solutions from thin air, bending danger to his will. It was something she had rarely seen in any species, something beyond training or strength. Suddenly, the pod's sensors beeped again. This time it wasn't drones. It was a warning of a nearby asteroid belt, a dangerous field, but one that could provide temporary cover. Marcus's eyes brightened. "Perfect. We'll fly through there. Small ships have an advantage. They can maneuver where bigger ships can't." The Queen leaned forward, her voice low and curious. "And you trust yourself to guide us through it?" Marcus smiled faintly. "I have to. We don't have a choice." Flying into the asteroid belt was treacherous. Massive rocks tumbled through the void, spinning unpredictably. Sensors flickered from interference, and visibility was reduced to near zero. The pod's hull groaned as Marcus guided it between massive stones, inches away from disaster at every turn. Each movement required split-second decisions, and each decision carried life or death consequences. The Queen held tightly to her seat. "You humans, you take risks that seem reckless." Marcus chuckled softly. "Maybe, but reckless isn't the same as stupid. You survive by thinking fast and acting faster. Sometimes that looks reckless to someone who plans differently." A massive rock suddenly shifted in the path of the pod. Marcus reacted instantly, twisting the controls and firing the pod's small thrusters to avoid a collision. The ship shuddered violently as it grazed the surface of the asteroid, sparks flying. The Queen's eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, she felt the true danger of relying on someone so human, yet somehow he kept them safe. "Steady," Marcus said, almost to himself. Almost there. They passed through the densest section of the belt, navigating with precision and speed. The enemy drones, unable to follow through such a tight and chaotic field, lost track of them. The pod emerged on the other side, battered but intact. Marcus exhaled, leaning back in his seat. The Queen looked at him, her expression a mixture of awe and respect. "You are remarkable. Few would survive what you just did. Fewer still would protect me while doing it." Marcus shrugged. "I do what I must. Someone has to make sure you survive, Your Majesty. You're the key to more than just your people. You're the key to alliances, to strategy, to hope. The Queen was silent for a long moment, considering his words. She had always been taught that strength came from loyalty, from imposing fear, from having the largest, strongest army. Yet here was a single human, smaller and weaker in appearance, demonstrating that courage, intelligence, and determination could outweigh raw strength. The pod finally came to a gentle drift near a small, uncharted planet. Its surface was rocky, with deep canyons and jagged peaks, but it would provide temporary refuge. Marcus prepared the landing sequence carefully, knowing that a mistake could spell the end for both of them. "Brace yourself," he said, voice calm and steady. The pod descended, thrusters adjusting for turbulence. Rocks shifted beneath them. Winds whipped across the surface, and the hull groaned under the strain. The Queen gripped her seat, but this time she did not panic. She trusted Marcus. With a final shudder, the pod landed safely. Dust and debris swirled around them, but both humans and alien alike had survived the descent. Marcus opened the hatch first, scanning the environment for immediate dangers. The Queen followed, stepping carefully onto the rocky terrain, her senses alert. They were stranded on an unknown world, far from allies, far from safety. Yet Marcus moved with purpose, surveying the terrain, finding shelter and planning their next steps. "We're not out of danger yet," he said, "but we've bought ourselves some time." The Queen observed him silently. She had led armies, commanded fleets, and faced countless foes. Yet she realized that in this moment her survival depended not on her strength or her guards, but on a human soldier's courage and ingenuity. It was a lesson she would not forget. As night fell on the strange planet, Marcus and the Queen set up a temporary camp. Fires flickered, casting shadows on the rocky ground while the stars above glittered coldly. The Queen sat beside him, her mind processing everything she had witnessed. Humans were different, unpredictable, and yet capable of greatness. In that difference lay a strength her species often overlooked. Marcus looked at her and smiled faintly. "Rest while you can. Tomorrow we move. The world is dangerous, but together we stand a chance." The Queen nodded slowly, a spark of respect lighting her eyes. For the first time she felt something new, trust. Not in her guards, not in technology, but in the human beside her. And in that trust lay hope. The enemy was still out there, the galaxy still dangerous, but for now they had survived. And in surviving together they had begun a bond that would shape the fate of worlds. The alien Queen stepped cautiously onto the rocky surface of the planet, her tall frame balanced with care as she observed the jagged landscape around her. The air was thin, dry, and carried a faint metallic tang. Strange formations jutted from the ground like frozen waves, casting long shadows under the dim light of a nearby star. Though harsh and unfamiliar, it was a temporary refuge from the relentless pursuit of their enemies. Beside her, Lieutenant Marcus Kane surveyed the terrain with sharp eyes. He had already identified a nearby canyon that could provide shelter and cover. "We need to move before nightfall," he said. "The temperature drops quickly here, and the wildlife may become active. Stay close and don't make sudden movements." The Queen's eyes narrowed. She had faced hostile worlds before, led armies across war-torn planets, and survived countless dangers. But something about this small human soldier impressed her. He moved with calm determination, analyzing, predicting, and acting faster than she had ever seen. "You adapt quickly," she said, her voice low but carrying admiration. Marcus glanced at her, a small smile forming. "Adaptation keeps us alive. On my world, we learn to survive by thinking, not just by fighting. You'll see soon enough." They began their trek toward the canyon, navigating through uneven terrain and avoiding sharp rocks that could puncture their boots or armor. The Queen moved carefully, relying on Marcus's guidance to avoid dangerous areas. The journey was slow, but every step reinforced a lesson she was beginning to understand. Humans could survive situations that would break even the most disciplined warriors of her own race. Suddenly, a screech pierced the air. From the shadows, strange creatures emerged, tall, spindly, with translucent skin and glowing eyes. They moved in packs, their long limbs carrying them with terrifying speed. Marcus reacted instantly. He pulled out his compact rifle and fired, the blasts scattering the creatures but not killing them. "Keep moving," he shouted. "Don't let them surround us." The Queen followed his lead, using her strength to push away smaller creatures while Marcus covered their escape. He moved with precision, always keeping the larger threats in his line of fire, always calculating their chances of survival. The Queen watched him in awe. Her guards had been trained to fight, but they had fled when tested. Marcus, a single human, faced danger without hesitation and kept them both safe. After several tense minutes, they reached the canyon entrance. It was a narrow opening, hidden from the view of the creatures. Inside, the canyon walls rose steeply, providing shelter from the wind and offering a natural vantage point. Marcus set up a temporary camp, using portable gear to create a small fire and purify water from a nearby stream. The queen watched silently as he worked. She was accustomed to giving orders and having them obeyed, but Marcus did not act out of obedience. He acted out of necessity, intelligence, and care. It was a type of leadership she had rarely encountered, and she found herself respecting it more than any display of power she had seen. Night fell, and the temperature dropped sharply. The queen wrapped herself in a thermal cloak, her eyes scanning the canyon entrance. "This world is harsh," she said quietly. "Your species must be incredibly resilient to survive in places like this." Marcus sat beside the fire, tending it carefully. "We've learned to make the best of what we have. The galaxy is full of dangers, and survival depends on quick thinking, cooperation, and sometimes a little luck." He glanced at her, his expression calm but serious. "Right now, our luck is that we have each other." The queen considered his words. Her species valued strength and strategy, but she had always believed that numbers and power alone could ensure survival. Yet here she was, reliant on one human, learning that courage, resourcefulness, and quick thinking could outweigh raw power. It was humbling and strangely comforting. The next day, Marcus led the queen further into the canyon. The terrain was treacherous, with sharp rocks and narrow paths, but he navigated it expertly. Along the way, he taught her small survival techniques: how to identify edible plants, how to find fresh water, and how to create simple traps to catch small animals. The queen watched him closely, learning quickly. She realized that humans had developed skills that could turn even a hostile environment into a place of safety. As they moved deeper into the canyon, they discovered a hidden grove, protected from the wind and filled with strange glowing plants. Marcus examined the area and smiled. "This will do for now. We can rest, gather resources, and plan our next move." The queen stepped into the grove, her senses alert. She had never seen plants like these before. Bioluminescent leaves, small fruits that glowed faintly, and a soft, warm light that seemed to pulse with life. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Your species would find ways to survive even in a world like this." Marcus laughed softly. "We do what we must. Survival is a habit, not just a choice." Days passed, and the queen and Marcus adapted to life on the planet. Marcus built simple shelters, using materials from the environment and his portable tools. He created basic defenses using rocks and natural formations to protect against predators. The queen, once reliant on her guards and armies, began to understand the value of adaptability and teamwork. She learned to hunt small animals, to move quietly through the canyon, and even to trust Marcus's instincts over her own pride. One evening, as the two sat by the fire, the queen spoke softly. "You have taught me something important, human. My strength, my guards, my armies, they mean little without courage and intelligence. You have shown me that." Marcus looked at her, his eyes thoughtful. "You've been teaching me too, Your Majesty. You've reminded me that survival isn't just about individual skill. It's about leadership, about knowing when to act and when to rely on others." We both learned from each other. Their bond grew stronger, not through words alone, but through shared experience. They had faced danger together, survived attacks, and adapted to an alien world. Each moment of hardship deepened their understanding of one another. But the planet was not without threats. Strange storms swept through the canyon, and alien predators lurked in the shadows. Marcus and the queen had to remain vigilant at all times. Each day presented new challenges, testing their endurance, their intelligence, and their courage. One morning, a massive creature emerged from the canyon walls, a predator with armored scales and massive claws. It roared, shaking the ground and sending smaller animals scattering. Marcus reacted quickly, using a combination of fire, traps, and clever maneuvers to drive the creature back. The queen joined him, using her strength and agility to protect their temporary camp. Together, they forced the predator to retreat, though not without effort. The queen observed him closely. She had fought monsters before, faced armies, and led warriors into battle. But Marcus, a single human, had faced the predator with strategy, patience, and intelligence. He had survived not because of strength alone, but because he had thought, adapted, and acted decisively. "That is remarkable," she said quietly after the creature fled. "You are more capable than any warrior I have known." Marcus smiled faintly, brushing soot from his clothes. "Humans survive by thinking. We're not the strongest, not the fastest, but we adapt. We find a way." The queen nodded slowly, a sense of respect deepening. Her guards had fled, leaving her exposed, but Marcus had held her safe. Not by power, not by armor, not by size, but by courage, intelligence, and determination. She began to understand that these qualities, often underestimated, were the true measure of strength. As night fell again, the two sat together by the fire, the strange glow of the canyon plants casting soft light around them. The stars above twinkled in the alien sky, distant yet familiar. The queen looked at Marcus, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They had survived the outpost fall, the enemy pursuit, and the dangers of an unknown world. And in doing so, they had discovered something more valuable than survival. They had discovered trust, respect, and the beginning of a true partnership. The queen spoke softly, almost to herself. "Perhaps there is more to your species than I imagined. Perhaps humans are not to be underestimated." Marcus glanced at her with a small smile. "We'll keep proving it, one step at a time." For now, the unknown world was their refuge, a harsh but survivable place. And together, the alien queen and the human soldier would face whatever came next. Danger, challenge, or discovery, knowing that they could rely on each other, and that the galaxy still held countless mysteries to conquer. The alien queen and Lieutenant Marcus Kane had grown accustomed to the rhythms of their new life on the harsh planet. Days were filled with exploration, foraging, and maintaining their temporary shelter within the protective canyon. Nights brought cold winds and eerie sounds of distant predators, but they had learned to endure, to anticipate, and to survive together. The queen's respect for Marcus had deepened with each passing challenge. She no longer saw him as a simple human soldier. She recognized him as a strategist, a protector, and a remarkable force of courage. However, peace was fragile. High above the canyon, sensors that Marcus had carefully scavenged from the wreckage of their escape pod detected movement. Not natural movement, but mechanical. Large enemy drones approaching in organized formations. Their enemy had tracked them, relentless and precise, unwilling to allow the queen to escape. Marcus studied the readings carefully, his brow furrowed. "They've found us," he said quietly. "And they're not just scouts. This is a full strike force." The queen's eyes narrowed. "How many?" Marcus counted quickly. "At least 50 units, maybe more. They'll try to overwhelm us with numbers and force us out of the canyon. But we can use the terrain to our advantage. Follow my lead." The queen nodded, her mind already shifting from survival to defense. She had commanded armies before, but she had never faced a situation where survival relied on one human's cunning and leadership. And yet she trusted him. Marcus was not reckless. Every action he took was calculated, every decision aimed at turning danger into opportunity. Marcus moved swiftly, positioning traps and barriers using rocks, fallen trees, and other natural features. He knew the canyon's narrow passages would favor defense, allowing them to control where the enemy could advance. The queen assisted, using her strength to move large boulders into key choke points. Together, they transformed the canyon into a defensive fortress, a combination of human ingenuity and alien power. When the enemy arrived, the first wave of drones advanced quickly, expecting an easy victory. Marcus waited until they were within the canyon's narrowest point. Then he triggered a series of simple but effective traps. Rocks suspended by tension cords fell, knocking several drones off balance. The queen leaped forward, her strength smashing the nearest attackers, while Marcus fired precise shots to disable the rest. The enemy had underestimated them, and it showed. "Impressive," the queen said, moving swiftly to clear debris. "Your species fights differently than mine. You use cunning, traps, and strategy rather than brute force." Marcus smiled faintly. "Brains and speed. Sometimes they matter more than strength." The enemy regrouped and sent in heavier units, drones equipped with stronger armor and more powerful weapons. They advanced with a mechanical precision that was terrifying, yet Marcus remained calm. He directed the queen to higher ground, giving her a vantage point to strike while he set additional traps below. Every move was designed to maximize the terrain's advantage. Hours passed as the battle raged. The queen struck with deadly force, her alien strength and agility cutting through the enemy ranks. Marcus moved through the chaos like a shadow, using quick thinking to disable machines, set ambushes, and protect the queen. Each moment tested their endurance, their reflexes, and their ability to adapt to unforeseen challenges. At one point, a massive drone breached their outer defenses, heading directly for the queen. Marcus reacted instantly, leaping in front of her and firing a concentrated burst that disabled its sensors. The queen glanced at him astonished. "You risk your life for me constantly," she said, breathless. "I told you," Marcus replied, reloading quickly. "You survive, we survive. Simple as that." The queen realized that Marcus's bravery was different from her guards' training. They fought out of duty or fear. Marcus fought out of choice, intelligence, and determination. It was a kind of courage that inspired her. A human courage that could rival any warrior's strength. The battle continued through the canyon, each side gaining and losing ground. Marcus and the queen coordinated seamlessly, their movements complementing each other. Marcus anticipated enemy tactics, setting traps before the drones could react. The queen used her strength to channel raw power into precise strikes, ensuring that every action counted. As the day turned to evening, the enemy began to falter. Their numbers were great, but the human and alien duo's tactics had turned the canyon into a maze of deadly obstacles. Each drone that fell was a testament to the combination of human ingenuity and alien might. Marcus paused for a moment, scanning the battlefield. "We can push them back now," he said. "We need to hit them hard and fast before reinforcements arrive." The queen nodded, understanding instantly. Together they launched a coordinated strike. The queen leapt from a high ledge, smashing through the center of the enemy formation, while Marcus used a series of calculated explosions to cut off their retreat. Panic rippled through the enemy ranks. Machines that had once moved with terrifying precision now hesitated, uncertain of their strategy. Finally, the last of the drones retreated, damaged and confused. The queen and Marcus stood in the center of the canyon, breathing heavily but victorious. The queen surveyed the battlefield, noting the effectiveness of Marcus's tactics and the resilience of their combined efforts. She realized that her pride had been misplaced. Strength alone was not enough. The human soldier beside her had proven that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome overwhelming odds. "You fought well," she said, her voice filled with respect. "Not as a soldier, but as a leader, as a strategist. Few could have done what you did today." Marcus shrugged modestly. "We survived. That's all that matters." The queen shook her head slightly, smiling faintly. "It is more than survival. It is proof that even a single human can make a difference. Your species is remarkable." For a brief moment, the two stood in silence, the sounds of the retreating enemy echoing through the canyon. They had won this battle, but the queen knew the war was far from over. The galaxy was filled with dangers, and the enemy would not give up easily. Yet, she had learned something invaluable. Humans could hold their own against overwhelming threats, and one human could change the course of events entirely. Marcus began assessing their position, already planning for potential future attacks. "We need to reinforce this area," he said, pointing to key choke points. "We can't rely on luck twice. If they come back, and they will, we need stronger defenses." The queen observed his actions carefully. She had commanded armies before, but she had rarely seen such efficiency combined with creativity. Marcus's ability to adapt, to think ahead, and to lead, even in the most desperate situations, was inspiring. She found herself trusting him more deeply than any of her guards, understanding that his courage was not reckless but deliberate and calculated. Over the following days, Marcus and the queen strengthened their position. They scavenged materials from the wreckage of the pod and the surrounding terrain, creating reinforced shelters and additional traps. They monitored the skies for any signs of enemy ships, and Marcus devised early warning systems using salvaged sensors and simple mechanisms. The queen assisted, using her knowledge of combat and strategy to enhance his designs. Together they transformed the canyon into a formidable defensive stronghold. During this time, the queen reflected on what she had learned. Her guards had abandoned her in the outpost, leaving her vulnerable, yet this single human had stood firm. He had saved her, protected her, and taught her the value of courage and intelligence. She realized that strength alone did not ensure survival. It was the combination of wit, determination and adaptability that truly mattered. At night, as the two sat by the fire, the Queen spoke quietly. "Marcus, you have shown me that humans are not to be underestimated. You have taught me a lesson I will carry for the rest of my life. Courage and intelligence can rival any army." Marcus looked at her with a faint smile. "And you've shown me that even the strongest can benefit from thinking beyond raw power. We make a good team, don't we?" The Queen nodded slowly. "Yes. Together we are stronger than any enemy." The night passed peacefully, but both remained vigilant. The enemy could return at any moment, and the galaxy offered no guarantees. Yet, for the first time, the alien Queen felt a sense of confidence in their survival, not because of her own power, but because of the human beside her. Marcus had proven that one human acting with courage, intelligence, and determination could hold the line against impossible odds. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Marcus and the Queen knew that the next challenge would test them even further. Yet they were ready, united by trust, respect, and the realization that together, they could face whatever the galaxy threw at them. As the first light of a new day touched the canyon, Marcus and the Queen prepared for the future. The human soldier had turned a desperate situation into a victory, proving that even the smallest and seemingly weakest could make a difference when courage and intelligence were combined. And the alien Queen, once abandoned and vulnerable, now stood with renewed understanding and respect for the species she had once underestimated. The galaxy was vast. The threats were real. But for Marcus Kane and the Thalcor Queen, hope had been reborn. Together they had faced the impossible and survived. The alien Queen and Lieutenant Marcus Kane stood atop the canyon ridge, overlooking the rugged terrain that had become both their refuge and their battlefield. The sun's dim light reflected off the jagged rocks, casting long shadows across the valley below. Marcus scanned the horizon carefully, his eyes sharp and alert. Despite their victory in the previous battle, the enemy was still out there, relentless, patient, and waiting for any opportunity to strike again. "Reports indicate enemy reinforcements are approaching," Marcus said, adjusting the controls on the makeshift communication device he had repaired. "They'll likely attempt a full-scale assault this time. We need a plan, fast." The Queen studied the valley, her sharp eyes taking in every ridge, every crevice, every potential advantage. She had faced countless battles in her life, commanding armies that numbered in the thousands, yet here she was, relying on one human soldier for survival, and yet she trusted him more than anyone she had ever known. "You humans are remarkable," she said softly. "I underestimated your species. I see now that courage and intelligence often outweigh sheer strength." Marcus smiled faintly, not taking his eyes off the approaching threat. "We survive by thinking ahead. Strength is useful, yes, but cleverness and adaptability keep us alive longer." As the enemy force drew nearer, Marcus began organizing their defenses. Using the terrain to their advantage, he positioned traps, barriers, and ambush points throughout the valley. The Queen assisted, lending her incredible strength to move massive boulders and fortify key positions. Together, they turned the rugged landscape into a deadly maze, a natural fortress that forced the enemy into predictable paths. Hours passed, and the first wave of enemy drones advanced. Marcus and the Queen waited patiently, allowing the enemy to enter the traps. When the drones reached the choke points, Marcus triggered mechanisms that sent rocks and debris crashing down, scattering the enemy ranks. The Queen struck with precision, her alien strength obliterating those who tried to push through. Despite their smaller numbers, the human and alien duo fought with extraordinary coordination. Marcus moved like a shadow, striking from unexpected angles, while the Queen combined agility and power to create openings and protect their weak points. Each action was calculated, each movement purposeful. The enemy had underestimated them again, and it showed. During a brief lull in the battle, the Queen approached Marcus. "Your strategy is brilliant. You see possibilities where others see only danger." Marcus glanced at her, brushing dust from his jacket. "It's about staying alive and keeping you alive. That's the priority." The Queen's eyes softened, recognizing the depth of his loyalty. She had been abandoned by her own guards during the outpost attack. Yet this human had never wavered. He had saved her, protected her, and taught her the true meaning of courage and determination. The final wave of enemy drones approached, larger and more heavily armed than before. Marcus and the Queen prepared for the ultimate confrontation. They had learned each other's strengths and weaknesses, creating a seamless partnership. Marcus relied on human ingenuity, while the Queen unleashed the full power of her species. Together they were unstoppable. The battle erupted with fierce intensity. Drones surged forward, firing energy blasts that lit the valley in bright flashes. Marcus darted between cover points, firing and disabling enemy units with remarkable precision. The Queen leapt and struck with devastating force, her movements fluid and controlled despite the chaos. Traps detonated, debris fell, and the sound of clashing metal echoed through the canyon. At one point, a massive enemy war machine broke through the defenses, heading straight for the Queen. Marcus reacted instantly, firing a concentrated burst to disable its targeting systems. The Queen moved with incredible speed, striking the war machine at its vulnerable points, forcing it back. Their combined efforts turned the tide of battle. When the last of the enemy drones retreated, the valley was silent except for the crackle of fires and the hum of damaged machinery. The Queen surveyed the battlefield, noting the effectiveness of Marcus's tactics and the courage he had displayed. She realized that her previous judgments of humans had been incomplete. One human, acting with intelligence, bravery, and determination, could make a difference that armies could not. "You have proven yourself beyond measure. Marcus Kane," she said, her voice filled with respect and admiration. "Not only have you saved me, but you have also shown me the true strength of your species. My guards may be powerful, but your courage and ingenuity are unmatched." Marcus shook his head modestly. "I only did what needed to be done. You survived, and that's what mattered." The Queen smiled, a rare expression of warmth and gratitude. "You have earned my trust and my respect. Your species will no longer be underestimated. You have proven that even a single human can change the course of events, and that lesson will not be forgotten." In the days following the battle, Marcus and the Queen worked to repair their defenses and gather resources. They communicated with distant allies, coordinating for reinforcements and sharing information about the enemy's movements. The Queen's perspective on humans had shifted completely. She now understood that strength was not solely measured by numbers or raw power, but by courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act in the face of danger. Their bond had grown stronger than ever. The Queen no longer viewed Marcus as merely a soldier. He was a partner, a protector, and a symbol of human potential. Likewise, Marcus had gained a deep respect for the Queen, recognizing her strength, intelligence, and willingness to adapt. Together, they were a formidable team, capable of facing challenges that would have overwhelmed most others. Finally, communication with friendly forces allowed them to coordinate a rescue. Human ships arrived to extract the Queen and Marcus from the planet, their engines cutting through the alien sky. The Queen stood beside Marcus on the ridge, watching as the ships approached. She knew that the events of the past days had changed her perspective forever. "You have not only saved me, Marcus," she said, her voice steady, "but you have also taught me the value of courage, intelligence, and loyalty. Your species is extraordinary, and you are extraordinary among them." Marcus smiled, a faint blush crossing his face at the rare praise. "We survived. That's all that matters." The Queen placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of trust and acknowledgement. "No, it is more than survival. It is proof that even the smallest and seemingly weakest can make a difference. You have changed the way I see the galaxy, and the way I will lead my people. Humans will no longer be underestimated." As they boarded the ships, the Queen looked down at the canyon that had been their battlefield. She had faced countless dangers, lost armies, and endured betrayal. Yet here she stood alive, thanks to the courage of a single human soldier. She knew that the galaxy would never be the same again, not because of armies or weapons, but because one human had held firm when all others fled. Marcus and the Queen ascended into the stars, leaving the hostile planet behind. The galaxy stretched before them, full of dangers and opportunities. They had survived impossible odds, strengthened their bond, and proven that courage, intelligence, and determination could overcome even the greatest challenges. In the months that followed, the Queen formally acknowledged humans as worthy allies. She shared her experience with her people, telling the story of the human soldier who had saved her life. Marcus Kane became a symbol of human potential, a reminder that bravery and ingenuity could rival the mightiest warriors in the galaxy. And as the stars passed by the ship's windows, the Queen and the human soldier looked at each other, silently acknowledging the bond forged in battle, trust earned in danger, and respect earned in ways no words could fully describe. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and often cruel. Yet one thing was certain: when humans stood together with courage, intelligence, and loyalty, they could face any challenge, and even the most formidable foes would be forced to recognize their power. The alien queen, once abandoned and vulnerable, had been saved by a human. The lessons she learned and the respect she gained would change her forever. And Marcus Kane, the human soldier, had proven that one determined individual could indeed hold the line, protect the mighty, and shape the course of history. In the end, it was not just survival that mattered. It was courage, determination, and the unwavering belief that even in the face of overwhelming odds, one human could make a difference. And that truth would echo across the galaxy for generations to come.